Hey guys, this is Rodrigo Diaz Coloma. I'll be talking about Operation Iraqi Freedom, our last Teach Us. Operation Iraqi Freedom is obviously within American history about how we led up to OIF and how and the reasons why. And I'll be discussing those topics throughout this presentation. Also, in the presentation, I will be going over some questions, and you can answer them how you like to. And please give me your honest feedback. So, as you saw in the in the interviews, that Gunner Sergeant Jackman um, was pretty explicit in his experience during his combat tour. I asked him some questions in regards to how he felt about the war when he went to Iraq, where he was, how many times he's been there, and and how his experience was. Obviously, it was his first time in 2005 when he went to Fallujah, and he was scared. Um, the reason he's not on the video is because he wanted to hide his face, so nothing goes against him in terms of either social media or if someone sees his face. Stetson Addis, I interviewed him as well. He went to OIF Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2007 or 8, and and that was during the time that he was helping with the retrogression um, mission from Iraq back to the States. So he was involved in making sure all the equipment and troops were trying to get back, like President Bush and then President Obama wanted people to start coming back. So that was from the start of the retrograde in 2008 all the way following to 2013. He was in Iraq for 14 months and only had 2 weeks off during that time frame. So on March 19th, President Bush warned Saddam and his regime to leave Iraq. He basically gave them 24, 48 hours timeline, and if they didn't go to that timeline or adhere to it, then they were going to pay consequences. So on March 20th, 148,000 American and 45,000 British troops invaded Iraq. Um, and what you saw in the on CNN and Fox News, you saw a lot of Tomahawk missiles from cruise missiles from ships and from obviously from the Air Force when they bombed a lot of the Saddam's regime's areas. On April 12th, U.S. forces secured Baghdad, and the statue of Saddam is toppled. So for me, during the time of OIF 1, I left the States in February, actually towards the end of January, and we went on boat from a ship from Norfolk all the way to Kuwait, and from Kuwait we flew from Kuwait into Al Asad, and Al Asad was a air base that we created, built from scratch, and we had a lot of our helicopters um, and Marines go to different sections within Iraq to support the the infantry. So by air. So during the time that we were there from February, March, and April, where March and April were the biggest combat times that we basically killed a lot of Iraqis, a lot of American troops were killed. But then towards the end of April and the beginning of May, President Bush declared mission accomplishment. to end combat operations. But long and behold, he did not know that that was just the beginning of OIF. President Bush declares U.S. military takes down Saddam's government is a victory for war on terror. As we know, it was one of the beginning steps because Iraq now didn't have a government, and then they needed to reconstruction of their country. In 2013, 2000, December 2004, U.S. forces captured Saddam. December 2005, millions of Iraqis vote to elect a full-term government in parliament. So the reasons for invading Iraq. As you know, Resolution 1441 on November 2002, the threat of Iraq's noncompliance with Council resolutions and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and long-range missiles poses international peace and security. So we knew that this was one of the beginning stages of holding Saddam and his regime accountable for their harboring terrorists and for their weapons of mass destruction. As you know, Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice and all them decided that Dick Cheney decided that it was really important for us to invade Iraq. Obviously, we knew that Al Qaeda was in Iraq, and this is one of the towards the fight on against terrorism events. We needed to protect the oil there because the possible option, but Iraq needed oil for reconstruction. So a lot of people say we invaded Iraq because of oil. Well, that's not necessarily true. Iraq needed their oil, and their first bombings were in protection of the oil fields because the Saddam burned up the oil fields as soon as possible. And so one aspect when we were there was to basically protect the oil fields and to start killing the bad guys. One of the key factors in OIF, the cost of war. So, beginning of 2004, there were a lot of billions of dollars that were being spent. 77 billion in 2005, 87 billion in 2006, 100 billion. And this war went on over 10, 13 years. As you know, Gunner Sergeant Jackman was in Fallujah, the revolt of Fallujah. Images of angry mobs in Fallujah dragging through the city and overbridged the bodies of 4 American workers from Blackwater. At this point, the U.S. and the military had enough, and we went back into Fallujah and we took over the city, and we had a fight again against Al Qaeda. This revolt strongly influenced American public opinion to intervene in Iraq. So, obviously, there is a lot of information for Operation Iraqi Freedom. I covered a small bit of historical background during this presentation, and I challenge you to know every kind of situation within Operation Iraqi Freedom because a lot of American lives cost, and there was a lot of cost in terms of money. I was in Iraq from winter, basically January 2003 to all the way to June, July of 2003. And then I went back again in 2005 from March to August. And then in 2007 I went back again in 2008 to basically for my third tour. And they were all combat tours. They were all combat in support of combat and reconstruction and getting Iraq back to where it was, but in a better state. A lot of people have pros and cons of Operation Iraqi Freedom. but this was a key event in American history.